Have you ever watched a pet sit quietly beside a place where a companion used to sleep and wondered what was happening inside its mind? Have you ever seen an animal linger near a loss and felt an uncomfortable question rise in your chest? What if grief is not something that belongs only to humans at all? For a long time, many scientists avoided using words like sorrow or mourning when talking about animals. The concern was understandable. Humans are experts at seeing our own emotions reflected everywhere. We look at a sad-looking dog and assume it feels sadness. We watch a bird call into an empty sky and imagine loneliness. Good science requires caution, but then researchers began documenting behaviors that were difficult to ignore. Again and again, in different parts of the world, certain animals responded to death in ways that seemed far more complex than simple curiosity. And nowhere has this been studied more closely than among elephants. Elephants have always fascinated people because their social lives are remarkably rich. They live in close family groups led by experienced females. Calves are raised not only by their mothers but by entire families. Individuals recognize one another after years of separation. They cooperate, protect one another, and appear to form bonds that last decades. When a member of the family dies, something unusual often happens. Researchers observing elephants in Africa and Asia have repeatedly seen herds slow down or stop completely when they encounter the body of a dead elephant. Sometimes they stand silently around it. Sometimes they touch the body with their trunks. They may gently explore the face, the tusks, or the bones. In some cases, they remain nearby for hours. Imagine walking through a neighborhood park and finding a group of people gathered around a place that held special meaning for someone they lost. No one is speaking. No one is rushing away. They simply stay. That lingering presence is what captured scientists' attention. One of the most striking discoveries involved elephant bones. Researchers noticed that elephants often show special interest in the remains of other elephants. They may ignore the bones of different animals lying nearby, but spend considerable time investigating the skull or tusks of their own kind. They touch them carefully and repeatedly. No one can ask an elephant what it is thinking. That remains the great challenge. But scientists can compare behavior, and when a particular response appears consistently around death and loss, it becomes harder to dismiss as random. The story becomes even more compelling when young elephants are involved. Observers have watched calves trying to wake deceased mothers. Some nudge the body. Others stay close for extended periods. In a few documented cases, family members altered their movements and delayed travel after a death occurred. If you have ever watched a child stand at the door waiting for someone who is never coming back, you understand why these observations affect people so deeply. The behavior feels familiar, even if the experience inside the animal's mind may not be exactly the same as our own. Scientists are careful with their language. Many prefer to say that elephants exhibit mourning-like behaviors rather than claiming they experience grief exactly as humans do. But even that cautious wording reveals something important. Death matters to them. And elephants are not alone. Researchers studying chimpanzees have documented mothers carrying the bodies of deceased infants for days and sometimes weeks. Certain whales and dolphins have been seen supporting dead calves at the surface of the water. Some birds gather around fallen members of their species in ways that appear surprisingly organized. Crows provide a fascinating example. When a crow dies, other crows often gather nearby. Scientists sometimes call these gatherings crow funerals, although that phrase is more poetic than scientific. Research suggests the birds may be collecting information about danger in the area. Yet the scene still raises questions. Why does death command such attention? Picture a group of neighborhood birds suddenly filling a tree after one of their own falls. Even without understanding the reason, you would immediately sense that something significant was happening. The deeper scientists look, the more they realize that social animals depend heavily on relationships. A family member is not just another body occupying space. That individual holds knowledge, protection, experience, and companionship. For elephants, this is especially true. An older female may remember distant water sources discovered decades earlier. She may recognize threats. She may guide younger animals through droughts and difficult seasons. Losing her changes the entire family. In humans, grief partly exists because relationships matter. When someone important disappears, the world itself changes shape. For highly social animals, a similar disruption may occur. Researchers have also found physiological clues that social bonds affect animal well-being. Separation from companions can alter stress hormones. Changes in behavior often follow the loss of close partners. Some animals eat less, others become less active, some spend more time alone. None of this proves that animals experience grief exactly as humans do. But science no longer supports the old idea that animals are simple creatures moving through life untouched by emotional complexity. Instead, evidence suggests a spectrum. Human grief may occupy one place on that spectrum. Other species may experience different versions, shaped by their own brains, social structures, and ways of understanding the world. That possibility changes how we see them. The elephant standing beside old bones may not be remembering stories in the way a human grandparent remembers. It may not reflect on mortality or the passage of time. Yet something about those remains still commands attention. Something about that lost individual still matters, and perhaps that is the most important lesson. For years, people searched for a sharp line separating humans from every other creature. We wanted clear categories. We wanted certainty. But nature rarely works that way. The more we learn, the more we discover connections instead of divisions. If you enjoy exploring these hidden connections in the natural world, consider subscribing to Global Wild Origins. Every week we follow the remarkable stories that reveal just how extraordinary life on Earth really is. What makes the image of a mourning elephant so powerful is not simply that it resembles us. It is that it reminds us relationships are valuable far beyond our own species. Across forests, grasslands, oceans, and skies, countless animals navigate lives filled with bonds we are only beginning to understand. They recognize one another. They cooperate. They nurture their young. And when those connections are broken, many appear to respond in ways that tell us loss has meaning. Perhaps that is why people stand quietly when they hear these stories. We recognize something familiar, not because animals become human, but because being connected to others may be one of the oldest and most universal experiences life has ever created. So the next time you see an animal pause beside an empty place, linger near a familiar path, or return to where a companion once stood, you may find yourself looking a little differently than before. The question is no longer whether animals notice loss. The question is how much of their hidden emotional world we have yet to discover. And somewhere on a distant savanna, an elephant gently touches the bones of another elephant and reminds us that the bonds of life may reach deeper than we ever imagined.